Company! Forward! March!
About this time, the United Kingdom was in a state of great excitement from the threat, generally accredited, of a French invasion. Barry had resolved never to see Nora again. But such resolutions, though they may be steadfastly held for a whole week, are abandoned in a few moments of bleak despair.
No, Nora, no. Except for you and for others, I vow before all the gods, my heart has never felt the soft flame.
Ah, you men. You men, John. Your passion is not equal to ours. We are like some plant I've read of. We bear but one flower, and then we die.
You mean you never felt such an inclination for another?
Never, my John, but for thee. How can you ask me such a question?
Nora was chaperoned by her brothers, Mick and Ulick, whose interests would be much affected by the favorable outcome of her affair with Captain Quinn.
Redmond, how nice to see you. Redmond.
How could you do this to me, Nora?
Redmond, in the name of heavens, what's the matter? What are you talking about?
Zoom and moving camera. The difference comes down to movement and magnification. Moving camera shots, such as a dolly or tracking shot, actually physically move the camera, whereas a zoom lens, despite its zippy title, makes the subject larger or smaller, not by moving the camera, but simply by shifting the lens elements inside to change focal lengths, and thus magnifying the view of the subject. As a result, the shots look very different from one another. Don't believe me? All right then, we'll prove it. We'll zoom in first. As our subject, Shelley, gets bigger in your frame, you'll notice that her spatial relationship with the people and stuff around her doesn't change. That's why a zoom looks artificial. Nothing and nobody's relative positions shift at all. Everything just gets bigger. When we zoom back out, keep an eye on everything's relative position. Shelley, the walkway behind her, the railing, the light globes, the atrium's ground floor, everything is going to stay locked in the same relative position. Okay, let's go. See what I mean? Nothing's position in relation to anything else shifts in the slightest. But now, when we enlarge Shelley by moving the camera, watch how everything's relative positions constantly change. Emmy will emerge from behind Julia, the railing will slide over the lights, and Shelley's background will shift. Let's do it. Shelley grows in frame, but here comes Emmy. Notice the lights passing under the railing. See how the ground floor is revealed behind Shelley. This is why the moving camera dominates most motion pictures and the zoom is relegated mostly to home movies. Moving camera more closely replicates our visual expectations of movement. See what I mean? So there. But that doesn't mean that zooms and dollies can't get along. In fact, sometimes they can collaborate with spectacular results. Some films like Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas and Steven Spielberg's Jaws create shots in which the foreground characters stay the same size in frame, but the background grows bigger and bigger. It's a freaky looking shot for freaked out situations. Here's how they do it. In order to get the background to grow, they use a zoom lens to shift between a short focal length to a long focal length. The problem is that the foreground also grows. Here comes the freaky part. If we want the foreground to remain relatively stable while the background shifts, we have to move the camera as we zoom to compensate for the zoom's magnification and keep our foreground subject Brendan's size the same. Right now we're zoomed into a telephoto, which has magnified everything. So next we'll zoom out to a wide-angle lens, shrinking our background while we dolly in to keep Brendan's size relatively stable, causing a disconnect between the foreground and the background. Here goes. Cool, huh? Now we'll reverse the process, zooming in to magnify the background while we dolly out to compensate for that magnification and keep Brendan's size the same. Notice how the background grows, but the foreground stays the same.